Hey everyone, it's Denise Brown from the Caregiving Years Training Academy, and welcome to the Caring Awards. We are honoring individuals who really work to help and support family caregivers. And we're going to talk about five categories tonight. We're going to talk about apps, podcasts, YouTube, website, and then we're going to talk about a tweet. And I'm going to introduce you to the winner in each of these categories and talk to them about their work. I find it so inspiring that there's all these people who are working so hard to make a caregiving experience easier. I just want to mention, when I started in this space, when I launched my first business, there actually were about 4 or 5 different companies in the space in the United States. And so think about how the space has grown, how many entrepreneurs are really making the most of their personal caregiving experience to help and support others. It's very inspiring. So tonight is an inspiring event for all of us, and it's a way to honor our winners. So we're going to start with our app category first. We're going to start with, you guys want to unmute? Okay, there you go. Okay, excellent. Okay, so Krista, let's start with you. I find the story of my PowerPak fascinating because you had a friend in need, you had a group that wanted to help, and what happened is you couldn't find an easy way for the group to keep in touch and organize who was doing what. And so what did you do next?
Yeah, well, thanks for having us. First of all, it's a pleasure for us to be here and chatting with everybody today. So we're honored, and we're an esteemed company. So thank you for bringing all of us together, first and foremost. But yeah, my dear friend Jenn was diagnosed with cancer, and a group of 10 of us across the United States wanted to make sure that she didn't live this journey alone, and that she had those in her community surrounding her and supporting her. And, you know, we used kind of all the tools that existed. So Excel spreadsheets, a birthday calendar, you know, WhatsApp, text messages, phone calls, and all the sort. And so what we really got out of the experience was this community, this bonding between the friends, and lifting her up provided so much for all of us. And it was really an amazing experience. Actually, I feel like I got more out of it than I gave. And, you know, we thought we were really going to be there for her, and it turned out that it was really a unique experience. But being Scott and I having a user experience design backgrounds, we really thought about it from a more holistic standpoint on how do you kind of care for someone, get their community to surround them, to lift them up in a meaningful way, and do that more holistically. And so we really thought about, there's a better way to do it. Some of these things we were hacking and trying to make useful. And so it's like, how do you take technology to use the best of it and get rid of friction so that we can love and support someone, bring community in all together in one place, and make it easier for people when they're in need.
So what's fascinating is it became your business. You actually own a business, and then my PowerPak became part of your business, and you are not app developers, but you became app developers in order to really create this solution.
Yep. I think we're called non-technical founders, right? So I guess that's like the term or whatever it is. But you know, it's interesting. Brett, who leads strategy and creative, and Scott and I, you know, kind of had this idea. And when I brought it to them, I just said, hey, you know, what do you think about this? And we worked on it as a side project for a long time, really kind of in between other jobs, and when we were able to do it. And so, you know, technology is super expensive, right? So it's time consuming and it's very expensive. And so it's one of these things where I wanted to stand this up and say, how can this actually be a business that supports itself, right? And so we incorporated as a B Corp. So it is a for-profit company, but our app is free. So anyone can use it, and it's free to do so. And so I think we've kind of trying to bridge that piece of it where, it's a self-sustaining app, and keeping it free is really important to us.
Scott, I want to ask you a couple questions. So you're working in Krista's organization, and all of a sudden you're working on a different type of project. Obviously, Krista is very passionate about this. I wonder what you thought when you first started moving into managing and developing the app.
Sure. Well, this is nothing new for Krista to come up with an idea and run with it. She's a serial entrepreneur for sure. And so I've lived through that. It really, it was just a new challenge and something. I'm always up for whatever and learning something along the way. And there's been a ton of learning along the way with this, because we just, we use technology in our design business for certain things, but this was really kind of a completely new avenue. And having to kind of come to understand what things mean when you're working with a developer. What does this mean compared to what we think it means? Sometimes we talk about production, and to Krista and me, that may mean building something. Well, to somebody that's doing digital media, that means something completely different. And to somebody who's developing an app, so yet again, something completely different. So, it's been a lot of fun for sure. I've learned a lot along the way. I've got a lot to learn yet, but that's the way we approach all of our projects, is with a challenge. We never did an easy project. So this is nothing new for us.
I just wondered, I'm enjoying Krista. Okay, so I just wonder, how has this project impacted you on a personal level?
Good question. I guess I've certainly shared my PowerPak with a lot of people, and I one of the things that I do that's completely new for me is handling most of our social media and working with partnerships with different organizations, both corporations and nonprofits and so forth. And so I've learned kind of a lot about how people might use this, and everybody's got a unique story and everybody's got a need for this. That's really been kind of an eye opener, that this is something that can help everybody at some point in their life, or maybe most points in their life. It's hard to say, but there's nobody who could not benefit from my PowerPak for sure. And that's been kind of a big thing. When Krista kind of came out with the idea, and she and Brett did a lot of whiteboarding and would bounce ideas off of me. I have some family that's had special needs and that sort of thing, and some experience there. So, I probably gave a little bit different viewpoint. Between the three of us, we really were kind of able to come up with ideas that would make sense for a lot of people and so forth. And I've gotten a lot out of that, just personally, as kind of validation and being heard and so forth.
Krista, my last question to you. What's your next goal for my PowerPak?
I think it's our North Star really is helping everybody that we possibly can in their time of need, and helping them build their communities in a way that really they can rely on them in the most vulnerable point of life. I think demystifying asking for help is high on that radar for me. People go quiet when things get really bad. And so I do feel like how we can talk about this, and like you mentioned earlier about inspirational, we took a really inspirational way, hopefully that everyone feels it, not only in our colors, but in our language and how we frame, so that it's really more comfortable for people to start asking for meaningful help, right? So if you don't want the pasta dishes, like ask for proteins, right? And simple things, right? All the way to like really monumental things. It's like, if we can be a better support system for one another, like it just fills your soul and you feel good. It's not why you do it, but like, I think helping people get that lift when you do something for somebody else that makes you feel good, it makes you want to do it again. And how do we get those people who are always saying yes to help? Those are oftentimes the people that are the last person to ask for it, right? Like they just don't want the help. Like if we can kind of flip the script on some of these things, like that's my goal. I mean, I think we can help loads and loads of people by just creating a more caring and connected world. And like, that is North Star for us.
Okay, that's a perfect segue into our podcast winners, Sarah and Jeremy. And the podcast is Caregiver Chronicles. And what's interesting, Sarah, when Krista was just talking about someone who's in their hour of need, you were in an hour of need. You're a direct care worker, you're a family caregiver, you were burnt out the summer of 2020. You reached out for help for yourself, and then you actually decided to reach out to help others. And the podcast was the vehicle for you to do that. What was it like when you were recording your very first podcast?
It was I think we did 20 takes of it or something ridiculous like that. And it was very I'm not sure what it was very raw. We were in our truck and on a cell phone. And I really had the feeling of like, nobody's gonna listen to this. Like, why am I doing this? And but I felt the need to just, even though I was in counseling and therapy, I felt the need because I knew so many people who I had worked with at the time, who were caring for a mother or a child with disabilities and just struggling. And, I was coaching my mom with caring for my grandmother. I was working in an assisted living facility. He was working in media. We were the only two people in the world working outside the home, or at least at that time, or at least what it felt like. And we had 2 kiddos on the autism spectrum with intense needs. And it was just like, we had a friend over and we just went and sat in the truck. She hung out with our kids. We sat in the truck and recorded. And it was nerve-wracking. I think we did at least 10 takes.
10 to 20 takes. We did a lot of takes there.
And we just sat in the cell phone and just delete and laughed at ourselves, but just told our story because we needed to. I needed to.
So you wanted to tell your story, and podcasting was the way you went. I'm curious if you thought about other ways, like a blog or YouTube channel.
I remember I was driving home from work one morning because I was working overnights at the time, and I got a call from her. She had gotten the inspiration that she wanted to get her story out because she's like, if I am burnt out like this through all this, I know other people are too. And she wanted to get her blog out. And I just recognized that her strength is shared through talking better than writing. So I was just like, you're going to be able to reach more people in a better way this way. So I suggested the podcast. I had been listening to podcasts, and you hear, the ones with, ads at the beginning that have, tell you about these free podcasting tools that you can use. So that's what we started with, just like I said, recording on a cell phone in a truck. Or in a closet or anything to get the right acoustics until we got it worked out a little bit better. And that, that's kind of how we went. But, she did want to try a blog at first, but I would, because I was looking, she asked me, she's like, I'm going to need you to edit that because you focus on writing and all those things. And I'm just like, with everything I have to do at my job, I'm not going to be able to put in the time needed to work that out properly. It's faster to edit a podcast, honestly, than it is to edit a blog. So that's kind of another thing I thought would be easier on me so that I also didn't get burnt out.
Yeah, he was burnt out too and just didn't want to edit my writing. It's bad enough I have the grocery list that's misspelled. He didn't need to do my writing.
So Sarah, how would you describe where you are with your burnout experience right now?
80% better. And I'm going to say 80% because I don't think anybody's ever 100% over burnout, especially my family caregiver journey is going to continue for the rest of my life, being a mom with a son with such profound needs. And there's going to be different times where I'm going to need to take care of other family members as time goes on. Things are going to happen. And I recognize that. And that was one of the things that I was feeling when I was in the burnout was like, there's no light at the end of this tunnel. This is all I'm ever going to do is take care of other people. But I learned how to take care of myself and how to balance self-care with caring for others.
So what's interesting, you're in a burnout stage, so to speak, and you add one more thing to your list of things to do, which is now a podcast. So you're going to learn something new, which is hard to do when you're burnt out. So you've committed to learning something new. You've committed to putting yourself out there with your story, which is really hard to do. And I'm curious, what was the impact on your burnout of doing that?
It helped it a lot. There's the therapeutic sense of just talking about your situation. And there's also the validation that other family caregivers understood that, I'm a huge advocate for counseling. My counselor didn't get every aspect of what it was like to be a caregiver at the time. When I talked to other family caregivers, though, they got it. Or other healthcare workers, they got it. So it was the validation and just the therapeutic aspect of sharing your story. It was a lot.
So I'm curious how it's impacted your marriage. You are now partnering on this podcast. You're working together. What's that been like?
I think it's been fun.
It's been a lot of fun. It's brought us closer together. It's allowed something that, because it is a form of media, which is my specialty, it allowed me to share that with her so that she can finally understand some of the things that I go through at work with these things. And also because I work in news, and that's not necessarily a happy thing. Being able to help people is a happy thing. So it has been great for both of our mental healths on top of that.
Sarah, what's next for the podcast?
We're booked solid with interviews for the next couple months. We have amazing. I want to make sure that we're sharing family stories and just continuing to do what we do, giving good advice and good tips and help and validation, and just sharing stories and support for family caregivers, because I think that so many family caregivers get thrown into that role, or are in a role we always don't look at parents or teachers as caregivers, but they are. And I want to make sure that we're reminding ourselves that there's so many caregivers in our community around us that can relate to different aspects at different times in the road of our journey, because we're all caregivers, or we're all going to need a caregiver.
Absolutely. And the truth is, we're all going to be burnt out.
Oh, yes.
Oh yeah. Mhm.
And I just think it's so interesting how the cure for your burnout was to start a podcast, which I think is fabulous.
I mean, I'm not going to say that was the only cure, but that was one of the things. I had to do meditation. I had to counsel. I still do counseling. I've decided I'm never going to stop counseling because I know that it's good for me. I've had to learn just different modalities and different calming techniques and things like that for myself, my kids, and even you've learned some different techniques and stuff. And I've learned a lot from my guests on, techniques for calming stress and anxiety and burnout. So.
And I just think there's something about being able to use another word that identifies you, that is just expansive in how you feel about the world. So I care for my family, I am a CNA, and I'm a podcaster. It just makes you feel like, wow, am I a full dimensional person, even in this really stressful situation as a CNA and a family caregiver?
Yeah, I would agree with that statement. I'm no longer a nurse's aide. I resigned from my job last year, just to be home with my kids more and support them. They have had more opportunities since I've been home, but I've learned other skills like Reiki is another skill that I've always wanted to learn. I became a Reiki master in that time because I have so many things that I'm passionate about. And I think we talked about this actually this week on our family update, how nobody is just one dimensional. Everybody has layers and aspects and different hobbies and things that they do. And like Jeremy is a sports enthusiast. He's a writer and a producer. He's a writer for What's on Disney Plus. He's a writer for Phantom Sports. So he has all these other things that he does and interests in, uses his interests and his passions. And just creates and shares with the world. So
I do my best.
And I think that's what we want for every family caregiver, to feel like they have a full life. They've been able to live a life during a life of caregiving, that it's not about putting everything on hold. Some things might just be on simmer a little bit, and we move forward in our life. Okay.
Absolutely.
yes.
Yeah, Sarah and Jeremy, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to move to YouTube channels. So we're going to move to Christina and Cindy. Their YouTube channel is Adaptive Equipment and Caregiving Corner.
Mhm.
Welcome. Thanks so much for being here. You've got this robust, busy YouTube channel, and you're not selling anything, but you're helping us effectively use equipment. And it could be our caree, or we're helping our caree use equipment. What was the inspiration for your channel?
Thanks for having us, Denise, and we are truly honored to be receiving this award. Our inspiration, Cindy is still a home health physical therapist, and at the time when we created the YouTube channel, I was a speech therapist in home health as well. So it was in 2015, and we were in the process in Southern Illinois of switching over from paper documentation as therapists to taking laptops into the home to treat patients. And so we thought, you get the same question all over and over again. And so, especially with physical therapy. And so we thought, wouldn't it be really a great idea, or at least really good for our time, to be able to create these really short videos to address these frequently asked questions. We'll keep them short. We know family caregivers and our patients, their time is valuable. So we're going to keep them under 5 minutes. So we created our first set of YouTube videos, and then we would take them in and play them on our laptops while we were doing the paperwork part of our job. And then that kind of counted as part of our treatment, because part of our treatment is family caregiving education. And so that would count towards that. And then after the video was over, we would ask questions. Cindy still uses our videos in her practice to this day. So that's kind of how it got started. We started on a cell phone as well. And so what we did, we were in one of our spare bedrooms, and we just on my iPhone, we didn't have a microphone or anything. So if anybody would like to get a good laugh, go to some of our earlier videos back in 2015 and check those out, and because they're very, we look back on those and it's just surprising. But some of those videos have, hundreds of thousands of views and stuff. So that's kind of how that got started. We started getting some traction in 2018, and that's when we thought, we need to look into this, about trying to make this a business. We are a for-profit business. So yeah, that was kind of the inspiration. Is it was the same thing over and over again, and we like educating. We like that part of our jobs. And so we thought it just seemed to fit really well. And there was such a huge need for that education. And, we put the videos out there, they're free. And that way, when we left, if the caregiver had questions, they could go back and watch the video again. We would leave it with them and leave the URL with them and let them know how to get a hold of it. So it just seemed to work really well for our practices at the time.
Yes.
You know what I love about our stories tonight is that no one decided I have to invest in expensive equipment or take a really expensive class on how to do this. You just did it.
Yeah.
And it's just a reminder that it only gets better when you do it.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Because it never gets better if you think about it. You have to actually do it to get it better.
That's right. That's
Right.
exactly right.
So I wonder if you ever feel a little, well, you talk about your earlier videos and how you kind of feel like, oh, wow, okay, you can tell that's a cell phone or whatever. I wonder if you ever feel like, wow, we have all these people watching us and feel a little vulnerable around how many views you're getting.
Yeah, I would say, I think when we first started it, that's when I felt most vulnerable, because even though when we first started, we didn't have a whole lot of views. But you did put yourself out there, and most of the time it was Cindy, me, I was behind the camera and putting Cindy out there, and so I felt like I was putting her in that situation. And you certainly do open yourself up to criticism and stuff when you put all this stuff out on the internet, and so, but I think over time, you I think what you're doing, you realize I've touched this many lives, or I'm helping this many people. And you just kind of forget that. Now you do get the occasional person that really just is having a really bad day and they want you to know about it. And then apparently your video is what's causing their bad day. So, but you just take it in stride and realize that, hey, guess what? That's engagement. So we'll take it. Because you watch the video, right? So on YouTube, it counts.
I so love that. That's engagement. I'm going to remember that, because you can sometimes start to worry about pleasing your audience to an extent where you don't want a naysayer or someone who's having that bad day.
Correct.
And then you kind of lose your mission and your purpose.
Right.
So I'm curious, who do you keep in your mind when you're creating your videos?
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, I just think, being in home health, and I love home health. I've been in it for, 30 years. And I think about my caregivers, and I think about those aha moments when the caregivers, you tell them a tip or a trick or something like that, and it just makes their day. I'll never forget going into a gentleman's home, and he had a hospital bed. And I asked him how he's doing getting out of bed. And he said, well, I can't really get over the bed rail. And it was down. And then I said, well, are you using the bed rail? And he said, no, I don't need it. He said, but the mattress squishes down and I can't get over the bed rail. My thigh, gets caught on it. And I said, well, why don't you take the bed rail off? Oh, no, those don't come off. Those are welded on. And I said, no, come on in here. Let me show you. I said, let's take those off. Took that off, and you would have thought that I was the inventor of bread. It was the best thing. That he was just the happiest man. And just little things like that, giving those tips over the years, learning from people that I treat. That's who you think about, and that's who you focus on when you're putting yourself out there and doing what you're doing.
Yeah, when we started, we were early on, we put out we asked ourselves, why do we get out of bed every morning? So we did that whole Simon Sinek thing, start with your why. And that's really helped us, Denise, I feel like, because it is, here in 2022, you do tend to want to please the viewers, or this one viewer that says this one thing, and you're like, okay, from here forward, we're going to do this. And we've had to come back to our why several times, but because we wrote that why down early on, it's been something that we can always come back to. And it usually is, to be of assistance to seniors wanting to age in place, and to caregivers to learn how to keep themselves safe and their loved ones safe while they're giving care. And I mean, it's just really that simple. And so when we come back to why are we doing this, that to me, I keep that in the back of my mind. And that really, for me, helps keep us moving forward in the right direction.
Yeah, I love that. That way you're not trying to please someone who will never be pleased.
That's right.
That's right.
correct.
Yeah, because that's exhausting.
Yes.
So how do you get inspiration for your content?
Yeah, we're on as many social media sites as we can be. So we're on, all of the platforms. And so we get people that reach out to us and ask us questions. And, even when you do get those people that aren't happy with the way we did a video or whatever, most of the time there really is a question. Maybe they're just upset. And so we try to extract really what is it that you're asking out of that question. So we get feedback and stuff from our videos on some of our YouTube channel, on some of our other social media platforms. And so we try to answer those questions. Or with Cindy still being in home health, a lot of times her patients, the particular situation, she will come home and say, man, I had this patient today and this happened and this is what we did. And, and so that's usually the inspiration, is that we think, well, that would make a great video,
right.
Or we get people that we're talking to when we are out in the community now. And we'll say, well, I've got this situation, and we'll be able to say, well, have you tried this, this, and this? And then we will, we'll try that and make a video out of it as well.
Right.
So
I think one of the other things too, that, we do have products that come to us. And a lot of times we try to think about, especially if it's something expensive or something like that, is there another way is there some type of a hack that we could use to help with this, as well? So that's part of what we enjoy doing. We'd like to problem solve and see if there's things out there that can help the caregivers.
We are really well connected with our area, our local health equipment lending program. So we're really huge on trying to make sure that people know about their area agency on aging. Every state has a whole handful or more. And do you have a local health equipment lending closet? And so we're actually on the advisory board of our local lending closet. And so they've got like a treasure trove of all these pieces of equipment. So if we need something, we can go over there and borrow it, make a video, and then give it back. So yeah, we've got lots of avenues where we get lots of great ideas for content.
Yep.
So what's interesting is the theme that's coming out of our conversations tonight is really relationship. And you guys really have formed relationships with your viewers, with your audience.
All right.
So you are tapped into their need, and your mission is to really meet their needs.
Yeah.
So so they're confident about providing care, they're confident about staying at home, and they're confident that it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah, because sometimes you think this is not going to be okay.
Yeah,
Right.
I can imagine.
And the interesting thing that we hear a lot, especially now that we've been able to get out in the public, is people all the time, and sometimes it goes straight to your heart, but they say, I wish I would have known about this before when I was, caregiving to my mom or my dad or something like that. And it's just like, so that's what we try to reach as many people as we can.
Yeah.
My last question to you is, what's next?
Well, I ideally, because Cindy is still out in the community doing physical therapy out in home health, we would love to get her on here full time. We were getting enough business now that I need her. And as a physical therapist, people are more interested in the physical therapy discipline than they are in speech therapy. And so there are some things that come up, and you wear many hats when you're an entrepreneur, and social media is the hat that I wear. And so I get these questions and I don't know how to answer them. So getting her out of her job, she carries our insurance. So, she's kind of had to hang on to that as long as possible. And then we just took a road trip out to Pennsylvania and New Jersey. We went all the way to the East Coast. We got to see the ocean, and we were stopping at senior facilities along the way, giving a free presentation to whoever would let us talk in front of their residents. We would love to do more of that. And so we took all of the products with us. We loaded up the minivan and we just drove out and gave these presentations and then came back. And we would love to do, we met so many great people and heard so many great stories that we want to do that a lot more next year. And that's what I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, it's exciting.
You went on tour.
We were. It was a road show, but it wasn't the antique road show.
Awesome. That's awesome. Okay. Christina and Cindy, thank you guys so much for being here tonight.
Thanks for having us.
And then Roberta. So Roberta is our website winner. Her website is zagocare.org. Roberta, thanks so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor and a thrill.
Yeah, so I'm just curious, from all the stories that you've heard from the other winners, what are you thinking about what you've heard so far?
Caregiving is such a difficult time for people. As you've all mentioned, you're not prepared for it. Nobody warns you. Nobody teaches you ahead of time. You don't learn in high school, oh, when your grandmother gets old, or, when your husband gets cancer, this is what you have to do. And it's just so great to see all these different organizations really helping people in their own way for very different ways for this group. Everybody has their own role to play, but in the end, everybody's goal is the same, is, to make this role of caregiver easier, to reduce stress and, get the best outcome or healthcare that they can and get through it sort of as unscathed as possible.
Roberta, you're the writer in the group. So you have 200 blogs, you research topics, you inform, you help family caregivers become an advocate. And I'm just curious, what keeps you motivated and inspired to keep going?
That's a good question. So I started Zago after the death of my teenage son from a terminal brain tumor. And that was a very devastating experience for our whole family. Obviously something that is hard to recover from. But I really wanted to take that energy and turn it into something more positive. So I started Zago, which is a nonprofit organization. And I created a product and started writing this blog. And my motivation for the blog is really based on my own experience as a caregiver and how hard it was and how many times I said, as you guys have said, you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what questions to ask. You're traveling blind. You say, how come nobody told us this sooner? And I'm really motivated to make it easier for other patients and family caregivers to navigate the medical world, to help them be engaged in the process. Sort of all the stuff that I wish I had known at the beginning,
The other theme that I hear from tonight is that when we have an opportunity during a time that's really painful, we can heal. We talked earlier before our conversation started, and we were talking a little bit about how difficult caring for your son was and how it still is a part of you. And I wonder how you feel about your ability to help others as it relates to your healing process.
It's funny that you say that because it's really a two-edged sword. In one way, I feel very passionate about this, and I'm very happy that I can make something meaningful come out of this loss. But on the other hand, I am pulling at a scab every single day, talking about him and how he died and what it was like and how difficult it was to care for him and the mistakes we made. And, my husband, Zach, died 15 years ago. And at the very beginning, of course, people were talking to my husband at work about this. But from that point on, nobody was talking to him about this. Like, tell me about that day Zach died, or what were those last weeks like? So, it allowed him to sort of have this separate life. And I created Zago, and I'm so happy that I did. And I'm very fulfilled by the work, and I'm very passionate about it. But at the same time, I'm kind of making it hard for myself to heal, because I'm just picking at that scab.
Yeah, the conundrum.
Mm-hmm.
And yet you are fueled by this mission.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. I am very passionate about helping other patients and family caregivers manage a serious medical condition.
Yeah. So as you think about where you want to go with your website, your organization, and your blog, what would be a big goal for you in 2023?
I'm always looking to increase readership, to reach more people, help more people. I always looking for new ideas for blogs. After 200, it gets to the point where I'm really trying to stretch my imagination to come up with things, thinking about Christina and Cindy and all those videos. It does become a head scratcher at some point, like, what am I going to write about now? But I get about, 12 to 15 healthcare newsletters every day, and I just scour through them for ideas. And, I see something, I'm like, oh, I have to write on that. That's so interesting. And, Denise, we were talking before the recording started about this recent one I read on how oral care in a hospital can drastically reduce the risk of pneumonia. And that was so interesting for me. And I just wanted to share it with everybody. Like, this is really important. You need to hear this. So, I'm very motivated and passionate, and I want to reach as many people as possible. I just want to bring more readers in.
So I'm curious, Roberta, for someone who's watching and they are inspired by your story and they're thinking, oh, I'm not sure I have it. I don't know if I can really do this. What words of encouragement would you offer them?
You can. First of all, you don't have a choice. So you just got to put your big panties on and take it one step at a time. And I think you'll surprise yourself at how much more you can do than you thought you could. You just have to not, I found, although dealing with a terminally ill child is definitely different than taking care of an elderly parent, which my father died of dementia, so I've been there too. But you just have to take it one day at a time, not think too far in advance, like, oh, how am I going to do this for 10 more years? Just how am I going to get through today? And, oh, that went well. What did I learn? What didn't go well? And move on from there. I mean, but you can do it. Everybody does it. You just have to make it happen and get all the education you can, by the way, from all of the resources out there. Not, of course, everybody that's here, but there's thousands more. You have to educate yourself.
And I think if you're going to start a blog too, sometimes you get caught up in how many people are reading. What are my stats?
Yeah.
So what's your perspective on stats?
That's so interesting, because when I started this blog, I thought it was going to be my mother and my husband. Like, oh, yay, 2 people. That'll be great. But I work really hard on these blog posts. They take me about 6 to 12 hours each to write. So that's a lot just for your mother and your husband. So I was thrilled to see the numbers start to climb. And I got to say, I'm kind of addicted to watching the numbers. I don't know how everybody else is, but I check them regularly. I get a little disappointed if they start to go down. I get excited when they start to go up. It's just fulfilling to know that, somewhere between 7,000 and 9,000 people are reading these every month, and commenting on them or taking them to heart, or reading them and going, oh, this doesn't apply to me, and shutting it, but yeah, it's kind of hard not to watch the numbers.
I have a love-hate relationship with the numbers. And so I use them in the way that I feel like is going to work for me that day.
Yeah.
And then some days I say, there are no numbers. It does not matter. It does not matter.
Right.
Roberta, thank you so much. It's been wonderful to connect and share with you. And before we close for tonight, I just want to share what our tweet of the year was. And I'll share my screen and show it to you. So I was in a situation of caring for my mom, who was at the end of her life, and I was really trying so hard to get her the help that she needed. And I was so frustrated. And I actually posted on LinkedIn, and someone on LinkedIn said, oh, just get some help. And it just made me so mad that I went to Twitter and said, basically, I am so mad about what this person just said. And then someone explained it to me in a way that I thought, wow, this is it. And that is, getting help is in and of itself a stressful and incredibly frustrating part of our experience as family caregivers. It's not a button you click. It's a bureaucratic maze you navigate without a flashlight. And I thought, oh, someone gets it. Someone hears me. Someone sees me. It made me feel so much better. And so that's our tweet of the year, which is really this amazing synopsis in a tweet of what life is like as a family caregiver. You don't push a button and then help arrives. I wish it were that easy. Okay, that is it. So thanks everybody so much for joining me tonight. Congratulations. It's been wonderful to connect and share with you. It's been so inspiring too. I think we all are going to feel a little different when we get up tomorrow morning, because we're going to be excited to get into our mission, because we know it makes a difference. Okay, and thanks everybody so much for watching. I'm Denise Brown. If you'd like to connect to our community, we're at caringourway.com. Thanks everyone. Bye-bye.